Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Well, first of all, let me say how much I enjoy being here in this beautiful city of Istanbul. As the previous session, the representative of the OECD dissected the name of Istanbul. I would add that this country, this city itself, to me at least, has three magical bridges: a physical bridge between East and West, a spiritual bridge between Islam and Christianity, and an intertemporal bridge between glorious past and a promising future. So I'm very glad to be here with you today. I was asked to talk about the future global economy, and I think that as one look ahead and see how the global economy or global economic relations are going to change, one has to identify the instrument of change. And I here can identify three fundamental changes that is occurring in the international economic relations. The three that I will talk very briefly about is a change in the global center of power. And the second is a change in the perception of global threat. And finally, I will talk very briefly about the change of the dynamics of demography. With respect to the first change in the center of global power, I would remind you that if we look at the last 50 years and try to understand the relationship between the countries and agents, we would see that since World War II, the world has a bipolar security structure. United States and the Soviet Union. It lasted till the fall of the Berlin Wall, where the world entered into a unipolar system. And now we see that this system, the unipolar system, is being increasingly attacked and cannot be sustained. And we are entering now in the face of multipolar system. We can identify and see how this multipolar system is developing by looking at the response to the international economic crisis that took place, that happened a few years ago, 2008. We see that the United States by itself cannot handle that kind of crisis. It has to enlist the powers of different countries. We see that the fundamental base of the economic relationship that existed in the last 50 years, the Bretton Woods system, has basically stopped functioning and on the verge of collapse. The G20 has called for a new economic paradigm, the emerging of a new economic bloc, which is called the BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, signified the importance of a new economic players, fundamental and important players in the economic sphere. We see the G20, no longer the G8 is the one who's holding the steering wheels of the international economy, but the G20 has to include countries like Turkey and Saudi Arabia, and that is also signifies the change, the shift in the center of international power. And most importantly, we see that the United States have now in agreement with the call of India to have a permanent chair at the Security Council. These are significant and important changes in the center of a global power. But even apart from the shift in the center of global power, we do see also simultaneously within countries a shift in the center of the decision-making process. In the past 50 years, governments dominated the economic process and the decision-making process through political groups, parliaments, and established press. Not anymore. Now we see the era of the blogs, the Twitters, the Facebooks, which are virtual societies which have an indirect and very significant impact on the decision-making process itself. So that's a very fundamental change also in the center of decision-making process within countries. Now, the other change that I can identify is the change in the perception of global threat. 50 years ago, whenever we have a conference on the nature of global threat, the existential threat to humanity, we talk immediately about nuclear warfare. That is the principal source of threat. Any conference now about global security will be talking about something else. We'll be talking about environmental degradation, we'll be talking about global warming, and as a matter of fact, the tragedy that struck Japan a couple of days ago and is unfolding now has been identified as the second most devastating impact on Japan since the World War II. That means the perception of threat has been changed from the conventional nuclear warfare to environmental threat. But not only that, we talk now also about disease, HIV and malaria as another extension of a global threat to humanity. And lastly, we talk about a non-conventional warfare. We talk about terrorism as an instrument of threat to life and to society and a way of life as we know it. So that's a fundamental change in the perception of threat that took place, that was not in existence 50 years ago. And finally, I would just very briefly talk about the change in the dynamics of demography. We have a dying north, as you call it, with the northern part of the hemisphere with a declining population growth and a very robust and high birth rate of the south. So we have, and to use the terminology of the earth science, we have two tectonic plates, population plates, that are in a collision course. A rising population growth rate and a declining one. And they are bound to crash and collide, and that would produce a major population earthquake. Now, that process has been taking place for a quite period of time. And the world, the international community has created a mechanism to equilibrate these two conflicting trends through a process of migration. So we have seen Europe accepting more migrant workers from the developing world, the Northern America, Australia, and others. But this process cannot continue. We do see that this liberal migration policy have produced some kind of a backlash. We see the emerging of xenophobia, Islamophobia, to be specific. We see calls for the death of multiculturalism. So there has been a reaction to this liberal policy of migration, and that means migration would not be the equilibrating factor in this disequilibrium situation. So we have to think about another way of mitigating these colliding tectonic plates. Finally, if there is any sure thing that I'm absolutely sure about, is that the standard Keynesian or neoclassical or Marxist interpretation of the global economic relationship is no longer valid. What we need is a new paradigm that would guide us through these uncharted waters. Thank you very much.
Teşekkür ederim ekselansları. Sayın El Sabah